Hi and welcome to my playhouse, and today I would like to talk a little bit about RAID controllers and how they actually present themselves to the operating system, to the server and the operating system, because well, I had a comment last night, and it was not in the comment sector. It was one of my friends that had borrowed a disk of me, like a regular hard drive like this, and he was gonna put it in a server to test something, and he would just have expected that the hard drive would pop up in the operating system, and it did not. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that and try and explain that. But I think we will go out of here. I'm gonna be drawing on the piece of paper again, and it's a bit noisy in here, so I think we'll go outside. It's wonderful weather out there. Okay, we have moved outside. It's a little bit more quiet out here. It's a little bit warmer too, actually, but the noise level has definitely dropped. I brought a couple of RAID controllers. This one is a Lenovo RAID controller, and it's the Server RAID M5015, and this is a really good RAID controller. Over here I have an Adaptec. This is a really expensive RAID controller, and it's probably a bit better than that one, but this one is the ASR 72405, and this one was sent to me by a subscriber, and I do have to give him a little bit more credit, because he actually sent me the battery supply for it afterwards. You haven't seen this one. Well, actually, did I show it in the live stream? No, I showed this on Patreon. This is the battery supply for it, and if you look in here, you can actually see that this must be two capacitors, because they have like the crosses that capacitors has, so that if they're gonna be blowing, that's where they will blow. So if you overcharge a capacitor, it will blow, and so they control where it will let out the gases. So thank you very much to Chris from Falster for also sending me the battery for one of these, and it's this one, which comes with a little extra circuit board, cache controller stuff here. But both of these controllers are RAID controllers, and what a RAID controller really does is, you have a, let's draw a server up here. We have a server, and we have some disks in it, like there, and those disks go down into a RAID controller. Let's just draw it as if it's outside. A RAID controller sees all the disks like that. RAID controller, and then let's see, we have the operating system over here, OS, and the RAID controller can present these disks to the operating system in a lot of different ways, depending on the RAID controller. So if you have these 6 drives up here, you could make a RAID 5 on the RAID controller here, and the RAID controller will just present the OS with one drive. Like, let's just say that these are 1 terabytes each. That's a pretty normal size. That will give us 6 terabytes up here. In a RAID 5, that would give us a drive, or the RAID controller will present the operating system with a 5 terabyte drive if we put that up in a RAID 5. If we tell the RAID controller we want these 6 drives to be a RAID 5, then it will present 5 terabytes over here. If we say that the RAID controller should present these drives as a RAID 0, it will present 6 terabytes over here. If, well, mirror RAID 1, 3 terabytes over here. But the operating system is not in direct contact with the disks over here. It sees the disks as the one that is being presented over here. So it does not really care about these disks. It thinks that the RAID controller is a disk. The RAID controller will be presenting this array of disks as a disk. And that's what the operating system will see and deal with. So let's RAID 5 would be 5 terabytes. And well, that's fine. You can also go in and configure the disks differently. You could have like a RAID 5 5 terabytes. Now there is nothing left over, so let's just say that these are 2 terabytes. Well, you could have another one, and that would be the same. So it would you could make 2 drives across these 6 drives, and both presented those as RAID 5 5 terabytes, so 2 drives. So in a lot of servers, the RAID controller, actually not servers, the normal thing is that the server has a RAID controller. And the normal thing is that, well, very often you use an external, like something that you can replace, but often there is also a RAID controller on the server's system board. So you would see a very simple RAID controller down there, and that would be able to make RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 10, JOBD, just a bunch of disks, which will present the disks to the operating system. And you can also do this in most RAID controllers. You can, in the RAID controller, say this disk, well, that's a RAID 0, and present that. This disk, it's a RAID 0, present that. This disk, and so on. So you can present all the drives to the operating system as a disk. Some RAID controllers can do this natively. There is a mode that is called IT mode, which it's most regular on the cheaper RAID controller to have this IT mode. The bigger RAID controllers are they're meant for doing a lot of more stuff, but as it is becoming more and more normal to have the operating system down here handling the RAID, like if the operating system will be presented with these 6 disks, it can make RAID over these 6 disks, and it can do some very advanced stuff, and you can change that by changing the operating system or updating it or buying a new program that will handle the disks differently. So IT mode is very popular. This one from Lenovo does not come with IT mode, but there is actually a hack to convert it into IT mode. This is a branded RAID controller. This is sold by Lenovo, but it's actually an LSI RAID controller. And if you go to LSI, you can download their software and flash this card to back to an LSI RAID controller, and you will be able to use the IT mode in it, if that is what you want. You could also just present each disk as an individual. There's a bit more work with that, but the RAID controller does also give some benefits. Like if you just present the disks to the operating system, well, you're not able to really use the battery backup in here. Let's just give that a plus. Because what this does, the RAID controller, is it receives data from here, from the operating system, which is connected down here, down main board, and on there is the operating system and so on. And data comes in here, and the RAID controller will, if there is a battery backup like this one, just be able to tell the operating system, yes, I got it. And the data will be stored on little chips like this, and they will be protected by the battery. So the data can then go out to the hard drives through cables here whenever it's convenient for the RAID controller. It does this very, very fast. It's nothing that you would ever have to think about, but it means a lot that as soon as the RAID controller sees the data from the operating system, it will just say, I got it, instead of having to write it to the disk out here, receive, well, the disk has a lot of electronics over here back, on the back as well, so the disk will tell the RAID controller, I've received the data, okay, you received the data, and then the RAID controller could tell the operating system, yes, we have the data. This is something that it does to prevent data loss in the event of a power failure. That's the grid. I don't know. I don't remember how to draw the grid, but it was just cut. And in the second that the grid is cut, well, if the operating system is writing something to the disks, that would be lost. But if the operating system has sent something to the RAID controller, the RAID controller will remember it because it has a battery backup. And the normal I think 72 hours is the amount of time that a RAID controller like this will be able to store the data inside before it is lost because of well, bad battery. This is the battery department on this one. It's a lithium ion battery, and yeah, more and more of these RAID controllers does not come with real batteries anymore. This is getting to be normal. Capacitors and supercapacitors, and the power needed is becoming smaller and smaller, so this is now possible. Okay, I ran out of lines here. This is the IT mode explained, and down here we have the OS again. And what will happen is you have the disks here. That's the disks sitting in there, and the RAID controller, which is here, will just pass the disks through as if it wasn't even here, and just deliver that down to the operating system. And then the operating system, like, well, you can have good software down there to decide what you want to do with the different disks. You could do a RAID whatever down here. You could RAID 0 on all of the disks, or you could use something like, well, there's something called Drive Bender. Oh, okay, or there is also something called Starwin. Different programs that are able to handle the disks in different ways. So you can do a lot of good stuff with the disks in this way because the operating system is in control. Now you've moved the task of handling disks from the RAID controller to the operating system. And back in the time, this was not possible because, of course, it takes some CPU to handle the disk's operations. And back in the day, when the CPUs was rather slow, well, it was not a good idea to have the CPU calculate RAID setups and do stuff like that. So that's why the RAID controllers were really fantastic, because that moved the computing of those operations away from the CPU and out to a dedicated board for that. This was dedicated to handle all the disk operations, and it would just present itself to the operating system as one disk, and the OS would not have to do very much. It would just have to write to that disk, and it would immediately get an acknowledge, we got it. But even though this has some advantages, like just changing the software and you get a brand new controller-ish and all new features, there's also some downsides. Like, if you have a drive fail like this, it's not as easy as just popping in a new drive. It usually does not work like that. If a drive fails here, well, you have to take out the drive and put in a new drive. The RAID controller will still tell you that the drive has failed, but when you pop in a new drive, you have to go in and tell the operating system that this is the new drive that it's going to replace, and blah blah blah. So that's a thing. Whereas with the operating system using the RAID controller, you can change the drive out here, and the RAID controller will handle that there's a new drive. At least that's the normal thing with this rate controller, and I am definitely also hoping that it's the normal thing with the Adaptec rate controller. I haven't had this in yet, so that's still to be seen. But also, if you want to add extra hard drives out here, that's that can be difficult in each cases. Like if the rate controller is in control, well, then you would have to install the software for the rate controller on the operating system to actually go in and tell the rate controller to do something with these 3 disks that you just popped in. Oh, they had to go into the rate controller and out again, like something like that. That one is not there. But that would be a little program down here for the rate controller. For this particular module, it's called Mega Rate for the Windows thing, and that is possible to go in and control the new disks over here. But that's actually a little bit easier if we're talking this system, because a couple of new drives, if this has set to IT mode, will just pop up in the operating system, and you can, in the operating system or whatever program you are using to control it, just configure those 3 to whatever you want them to, and that makes it a lot easier. Where, well, the normal thing I do is I actually shut down the operating system because I don't want this software running on the operating system. So I shut down and I go in through the BIOS and configure the rate controller. Or some rate controllers, you press Control C or Control H doing boot up, and you can that way go in and configure those. I do believe that I've shown that in multiple videos, where you boot the server, go into the rate controller and configure the rate that is presented to the operating system. And there is a lot of good settings that you can set in the rate controller. Also, the rate controllers does not always come with all the options, and there's a nice example of that right here. There is actually, first there is this board over here, which opens up for additional. Before it had this battery and this board down here, it was not able to do RAID 5. I'm not totally sure about that. Well, but this board and the battery opens up for some features. And also this little tiny board that is on here, that opens up for additional features. So that's a little hardware key that opens up for some features that is on the board. And that's the features that you would normally get in a program like this, like RAID 6 or doing something awesome. But this setup is being used more regularly right now because the CPUs are so fast. And often this is used what is called hyper-converged storage, where you have a bunch of disks in your server and the operating system sees it, and you can cluster this. So the storage in this server and 3 servers alike it can be shared over the network, and you will have a clustered storage. Let's see, this is 3 VMware hosts or 4 VMware hosts, and you have a lot of storage in those, and combined they make a cluster of storage. So if one of them falls out, well, the 3 others will still have the storage, and when you get the failed one up again, well, it will be complete once again. This is no different than how the big SAN producers does this, but it's just getting more regular that you're actually using your hosts where your virtual machines are on as the storage pool as well. And there is different ways of doing this. There is the vSAN that is built into VMware. Okay, I hope that made any sense whatsoever, because otherwise I'll just have to try again, wouldn't I? You won't believe this, but it's actually cooler in the data center today than it is outside, which that's kind of awesome. That really means that my DIY cooling is working, because I can feel a cold breeze coming in from the floor, because I'm sucking in the air from the shadow side of the house, which is being blown into my data center here. So, well, if you got something good out of this video, please remember to give it a like. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again. And have a really nice day. Bye bye.